Welcome everyone. Happy Monday morning. Today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. And I just thought this was a good little picture for today. Reminder to be positive through all that's happening. So again, here's our calendar. If you did not work on operations with rational numbers on Friday, that's still available for you on Schoology. Today we are moving on to adding and subtracting rational numbers, and more specifically we're going to focus on integers, positive and negative whole numbers today. So how exciting, we get to do online learning. Here's my favorite baby meme mascot to get us going. Okay, so when we're adding integers and they have the same sign, first of all, you all know how to add two positive integers, 27 plus 16. We can do it the standard algorithm where we just add them. You could do 20 plus 10 and 6 plus 7, however you'd want to add these together. So when they're both positive, this is what you've been working on since first grade, right? 27 plus 16 is 43. Well, here's the great news. Negative 27 plus negative 16, if you remember our red and black coins when we did this, that just means you would have 27 red chips, 16 red chips. I'm not going to draw them all, but that means that all we have to do is add 27 and 16, which is 43, but then it's negative because we're adding 27 negative pieces and 16 negative pieces. So when we're adding integers with the same sign, we add the absolute value of them. Remember, absolute value is the distance from 0. So ignore the signs, just add the numbers, and keep the sign of the numbers. So 27 plus 16, both positive, add it, positive answer. Negative 27 plus negative 16, add it, both negative, negative answer. So now, if we're adding integers with different signs, if you think about a number line, so let's look at this first one, negative 27 plus 16. So if I'm at negative 27 and I'm adding 16, that means that I'm going to be getting closer to 0 because I'm going more toward the positive. That means the number, the absolute value, will be getting smaller. So we're going to find the difference between these two, 27 minus 16, which is 11. But if I start at negative 27 and I go up 16, I'm still going to be in the negatives. So our answer would be negative 11. But if we are starting at positive 27 and adding negative 16, right? That means we're going more towards 0 this way. The absolute value of our answer will still be smaller, but we're still going to be in the positive. So 27 minus 16 is 11, but we're still in the positive 11. So it's kind of like if we're at negative 27 and we add 16, if you're in debt $27 and you get $16, you're still going to be in debt. But if you have $27 and you let someone borrow 16, you still are going to have money. So if we are adding integers with different signs, one's positive, one's negative, you need to subtract the absolute values of the numbers. So we're ignoring the signs and we're just finding the difference between them. And then you keep the sign of the larger absolute value. So even if you had something like 16 plus negative 32, we're still going to be subtracting their absolute value. So finding the difference between 32 and 16. The order doesn't matter when we're doing that. The difference is 16. That's how far apart they are. But if we're starting at positive 16 and we're going negative 32, that means our answer is going to be negative. So the difference is 16, but we're going to keep the sign of the larger absolute value. The larger absolute value would be the negative 32, so our answer is negative 16. We're keeping that negative sign. So here's my little kitty cat on the graphing calculator doing some math. And the cat remembered that subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. And we've talked about this all year. Subtracting integers is equal to adding the opposite. So what that means is anytime you're subtracting integers or rational numbers like fractions or decimals, this works too. Let's change it to addition, and then we just have to remember the rules that we just talked about. Because if I'm subtracting 16, well, that's the same as adding a negative 16. We change it from subtraction to adding the opposite. Therefore, if I'm subtracting a negative 16, I'm going to change it to adding the opposite. So it would be adding a positive 16. And same, it doesn't matter what sign the first number is. That doesn't change. So if it's 27 minus 16, that's the same as 27 plus negative 16. That first number doesn't change, but we just changed the second to adding the opposite. So we were subtracting, so we changed it to adding. This 16 was negative, so we changed it to positive. Because if you change all subtraction to adding the opposite, then whenever you see a subtraction problem, you just need to remember the addition algorithms that we've talked about. So there's different ways to practice today. First, if you have your Envision textbook, Volume 1, Volume 2 is what I just gave out last week. Oops. If you have your Envision textbook, Volume 1, I would have given out those sections in the fall. If you go to pages 19 through 30, which is topic 1.3 and 1.2, sorry, 1.3 and 1.4, those are on adding and subtracting integers. So they have the examples in the textbook, practice problems. If you do not have Volume 1, then in this Schoology folder, there's adding and subtracting integers from just an online practice worksheet with answer keys, so you can check your work. And then we actually did this earlier in the year, but if you feel like you've got adding and subtracting integers and you want a bit more of a challenge, you can look at two truths and a lie rational numbers. So you're still adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, but some of the numbers you're going to be dealing with are fractions and decimals. And then lastly, this link that I'll also put in the folder is online practice from IXL for adding and subtracting integers. So last thing to remind you is we have our Pearson online account still. You can get on there. All the instructions are in Schoology. I was going to actually have us practices at school, but we didn't get a chance. So we did it at the beginning of the year, and it's like the online textbook where you can practice, and they'll give you the help buttons and the answer key and such. And you can also find other things to practice on there. You have access to everything, even if I didn't assign it. So go play around on that. And then if you know you have friends who might not have seen this yet, please reach out to them and ask them to look on Schoology in the day-by-day lessons. Even if you all just work on this for half an hour a day, it'll make a big difference when we come back to school. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good Monday.